Hello and welcome again to Binary News. My name is Marta. Today is the 17th of July and I have some rather sad news for you today regarding Yogventures, which is of course the Kickstarter funded sandbox game in partnership with the Yogscast. Now unfortunately, that project has now been cancelled and backers have understandably reacted in dismay at the cancellation itself and the Yogscast subsequent offer of a Steam key for an open world game by the name of TUG instead. Now, for those of you wondering, Yogventures raised a very impressive $570,000 for the indie studio Wintercool Games during the Kickstarter campaign, more than doubling their original goal of $250k. But unfortunately, since then the project has petered out and has now been disowned by the partners, the Yogscast. And the Yogscast co-founder Lewis Brindley, who's of course basically one of the main guys of the Yogscast alongside Simon, said, quote, "As you may have heard, Wintercool Games have stopped work on Yogventures, but this is actually a good thing. The project was proving too ambitious and difficult for them to complete for their 6-man team. While this was Wintercool's project, we put a lot of time, energy and effort into trying to help them realise their dream. Since we heard the news, we've been working hard behind the scenes to make sure they still get awesome stuff and cool experiences. Although we're under no obligation to do anything, instead we're going to do our best to make this right and make you really glad you did back the project." Now, the first step of this seems to be to give all Yogventures backers a early access key for the game that I mentioned earlier, TUG, and the Yogscast and the developer of the title, Nerd Kingdom, did sign an agreement last week to become partners on the project, which basically replaces the role of Yogventures entirely. And Lewis continued by saying, quote, "In many ways, TUG is the game we were hoping Wintercool would create. It has huge potential for the future. We've been playing the early access version on Steam and you'll soon be able to see us playing the game on your cast channels. But, as you might expect, several backers were unhappy with the change and some have asked for a refund." And one of them even asked a rather reasonable and raised a very good point by asking, quote, "I already own TUG as I backed it on here. Will there be an option for a refund?" And to be fair, that is a pretty reasonable question, and the issue of a refund is pretty complicated and even more of a problem if in fact you are one of the people who paid extra for other rewards on top of the game itself. More than 1,000 people pledged more than $90 in the project for return for Yogventures merchandise as well as in-game bonuses. Now obviously some of these things had already shipped but many had not, and the in-game bonuses will obviously never appear. And Lewis responded to these saying, quote, "Because Yogventures never completed, it's going to be impossible to deliver the rewards relating to the finished game. However, we'll do everything we can to find cool things to take their place." And he concluded by saying that more details and further offerings were being considered but will be announced at a later date. And well, the likelihood of a refund from the developer looks remote, however, and now the studio will probably go out of business, according to the lead developer Chris Vale. And he said, quote, "Working on Yogventures was an amazing experience and everyone at Wintercool Games really wanted to achieve the very lofty goals the game set out to do. But the lack of experience in planning and managing a project of this scope proved too much for our little team. I can't speak for the Yogscast, and I make no claims that I do. For their own reasons, they decided the game wasn't up to the quality they needed it to be to make videos supporting our pre-order models. That was and is their prerogative, and we had no way of influencing that decision other than making the game as best as we could with what we had to work with." And Val actually sank more than $25,000 of his own money into the project before the plug was pulled. And they said, quote, "We missed milestone after milestone and continued to come up short of the quality expectations, and thus the Yogscast didn't want to advertise the pre-orders until it did meet those expectations. I wish more than anything I would have had this foreknowledge before we ever began this project. If we would have limited the scope and made a solid plan for working more closely with the Yogscast, I have every faith this project would have been a real standout achievement in the indie game world." Now, there is a bit of an update since the original story broke. Before I go and give my opinions, Yogscast did issue a statement regarding Yogventures and the demise of Wintercool Games. Now, Yogscast did say that any Kickstarter backers should have already received their physical rewards, but if you are someone who has not, you should get in touch. And of course, they did previously add that they are working with Nerd Kingdom to develop a replacement game which will basically take the place of Yogventures. Now, as I said previously, refund requests should go to Wintercool Games, but the Yogscast did say, quote, however, if people come to us, we'll do everything we can to find a resolution that everyone is happy with. Well, but obviously, as I said previously, a chance of a direct refund from the developer doesn't seem very likely. And they also issued a fairly lengthy statement, but I have covered the key things here. If you are a Kickstarter backer who has not yet received a physical reward, you do need to email them at yogventures@yogscast.com. So basically you can look into that. And as for the in-game items, they are actually working with Nerd Kingdom to try and match them as closely as possible in the early access game TUG. So if you do wish to try and arrange something with them, if you perhaps already own TUG or whatever, do contact that email address. So there you have it, guys, a rather sad tale, to be honest. The people I feel the worst for here is Wintercool Games and the lead developer, who obviously sank quite a bit of money into this project and now is never going to see a return on that. That, you know, their whole company has basically gone under. Obviously, no one wanted this result. It's pretty horrible for everyone involved. And while I do feel bad for the Kickstarter backers, obviously Kickstarter, it is pretty much putting your money into a slot machine. You may or may not get a return from it. Kickstarter is not a pre-order service, unfortunately. There is some chance when you donate to a project that it will not be completed due to lack of funds, and obviously you won't see any refund on that because, well, that's kind of the nature of Kickstarter. That's why you do your research first. Now, I'm honestly surprised that this project failed, of course, because it had the backing of the Yogscast, one of the biggest YouTube channels around at the moment. But it's just the nature of the format of Kickstarter, and my heart does go out to the backers, but obviously people do need to understand that this is one of the risks of Kickstarter. The people I feel the most sorry for are Wintercool Games, as of course they've lost quite a bit. So hopefully everyone gets a result they're happy with, but that is me done for this rather lengthy video, and I'll see you next time.